In 15th century Austria, a highly specific crime wave swept through local parishes. Thieves ignored traditional valuables like gold crosses and silver chalices, focusing their efforts entirely on stealing consecrated hosts. To believing Catholics, the communion wafer is the literal body of Christ. That profound theological weight made the Eucharist an incredibly valuable black market commodity, highly sought after for extortion and occult rituals. Church authorities realized they had to adapt. They ordered priests to stop leaving the hosts out on the main altar and instead lock them away inside heavy wooden cabinets within the restricted, highly secure sacristy rooms. But a locked door only deters a casual criminal. For a determined thief, the high payoff of acquiring the Eucharist justified the risk of breaking into these fortified spaces. That risk-reward calculation brings us to the year 1411, inside the parish church of Whiten. Sometime during the night, an unidentified thief managed to bypass those newly mandated security protocols, breaking directly into the church's sacristy. This detour was sparsely populated and completely unmonitored. Under normal circumstances, it would have guaranteed a clean getaway. He had successfully outmaneuvered the local patrols, but out on that isolated dirt road, he ran into an obstacle he couldn't have anticipated. Halfway down the path, at a completely unremarkable spot in the road, his horse suddenly stopped dead in its tracks. The thief panicked. He beat the animal, spurring it to move forward, knowing every wasted second gave the parish authorities time to close in. A few laborers working in the adjacent fields heard the commotion and came over to help. They pulled and prodded, but the animal was entirely immobilized, standing rigid like a carved statue. Then, without any warning or prompting, the stalemate broke. The horse bolted forward into a violent, full-speed gallop. The sudden jolt threw the rider off balance. As he gripped the reins to steady himself, the hidden host slipped directly out of his glove and tumbled into the dirt. The thief vanished into the night, successfully escaping with his freedom. But he had completely failed to realize that his high-value target was now sitting abandoned in the mud. A few days later, a local woman named Mrs. Scheck from the nearby town of Mannersdorf was walking down that exact same stretch of the Am Schuss road. She stopped when she noticed something strange in the dirt. It was the stolen host, and according to the historical accounts, it was radiating a brilliant, highly visible circle of light. When she knelt down to retrieve it, she saw something even more striking. The communion wafer had been broken cleanly in two pieces, but the two halves were still joined together by physical threads of bleeding flesh. The sight of the bleeding threads immediately transformed the community's view of the abandoned wafer. To Mrs. Scheck and the investigators who followed, this physical condition served as tangible evidence that the Eucharist remained the living body of Christ. Deeply affected by what she found, Mrs. Scheck personally funded the construction of a small memorial chapel to mark the exact coordinates of the discovery. Word of the glowing, bleeding host spread rapidly through the surrounding parishes, pulling massive crowds of religious pilgrims out to the previously quiet Mulhdorf Valley. The influx of travelers grew so large that local authorities eventually had to construct an entirely new, much larger church just to manage the crowds and preserve the relic in an ornate golden monstrance. A thief set out in 1411 to profit from a religious artifact, only to lose his prize in a muddy ditch. Yet that single botched heist inadvertently manufactured one of Austria's enduring sacred sites, proving that even an act of desecration can birth a monument to faith.